Would you guys like to play a game?
I would love to play a game.
Oh,
Although I did
that
two last
time
time, so I'm
again.
not doing two this time. Screw that, I got slaughtered in the last two.
Well, you gave up.
Yeah,
I won by capitulation.
it was impossible, man.
Do you want to guys? Do you want to guys? Do you guys want to know something funny? You just said the word capitulation, and it reminded me of it, even though it's a different word.
Go on.
You know how I'm dealing with like KitchenAid stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
Did it remind you of KitchenAid?
No.
Alright.
No. So we get these reports that customers have written about like the fault on their small appliances, like their blenders and toasters and stuff. This guy clearly I guess English wasn't his first language, but I had to read a message, right, literally telling me that he had consummated his blender. Yeah, just made me laugh a lot. Just so you,
What does
just so
that?
you know.
What does that mean? Is that a real thing? To consummate your blender?
Well, have you never heard of someone consummating their marriage?
Yeah, I know that, but like,
Yeah, so he had sex with his blender, I guess.
oh no!
Yeah, I guess. So I don't know. It just made me laugh.
1 second, guys. Let me just gather my
man.
things.
With a blender.
I never even thought about that.
Why you think that's not the first thing that crossed your mind? That he... That's awful, lad.
Pretty rad. No wonder it don't work. Bet it works better than he does.
So, who would like to go first?
I don't mind. Depends what the thing is, I think.
Yeah.
You want me to? I've got 3 ready. Are you ready?
Go on.
Number 1. Socialism is more of a threat to civilization than Islam.
Oh.
First one. Second one. We need a volcano every country. Third one. There should be a universal living wage.
Oh my goodness.
I like the third one.
There should be a universal living wage.
That's fine by me. I'm not debating this one though.
That's
That's between you two.
Okay, do you want to take? Shall we flip?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have a coin nearby?
Yeah, I'll do. Alright.
I'll be tails.
Alright. It's heads. So
Ollie is arguing in favour.
Ollie's
Okay.
arguing in favour for socialism. What was it?
Yeah.
It was a socialistic thing. I can't remember what it actually was.
Everyone should have a living wage.
Ah, yes. Alright.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Alright.
Is this everyone on the planet?
Yep.
Okay.
Everyone.
Right, how much, what is it? Is it 2 minutes opening, yeah?
Yep.
Mhm.
Alright, your 2 minute opening statement begins now.
Okay, so I think everyone should have a living wage. I don't think everyone should necessarily have the equal living wage. I think richer people should have, it should be based on your income already, like your extra income, but you should have a living wage. So really rich people, it'd go down to next to nothing. Not so rich people, it'd be like, something where it's fairly sustainable. Not maybe so good as like a full-time job that's like, minimum wage, maybe a little bit lower than minimum wage, type of thing. But something that's, just gives them something to get by. Now it would cost a lot of money, but I think it would encourage a redistribution of wealth, a slight sort of adjustment quite a big adjustment to the economy to make something like that sustainable. And I think in the long run, it would be good for everyone. I think human beings just we need to look after each other, and I think it would be a good way of doing that. And then we wouldn't have to worry so much about looking after homeless people because there wouldn't be as many of them. Everyone's health would just get better in general. Everyone's education would probably get better as a result. There would be a big knock-on effect in society if everyone had a living wage. That's all I've got to say.
Alright, you had 27 seconds remaining. Adam,
Hello.
are you ready for your 2-minute opening statement?
I think I am ready, yes.
All right, begin.
Okay, a few questions are gonna be in my opening statement. So, first one, who exactly is supposed to pay for this? Even if you taxed everybody at 100%, is that really going to be enough to give 7 billion people a universal living wage? I'm going to guess no, absolutely not. It's not going to be enough. And I mean, a varied living wage is a pretty good idea, because you could argue that living wage for somebody who lived in a very poor country like Africa wouldn't need wouldn't need as much as somebody living in a rich country. But I've got to bring us on to this, which is the universal living wages, from example, don't work. Look at communism, for example, and the problem is always the same problem. Nobody can pay for it. There just isn't enough money in circulation to pay for these sorts of huge things. And you can't think of a single example of a universal living wage where it's actually worked. But I can name plenty of examples where it's absolutely been a total disaster. I mean, take every single country that was under the USSR, total disaster, universal living wage. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela is supposed to have a universal living wage, but people are starving in the streets. And that's purely for one reason, and that's that it doesn't work. The market itself can't stabilize to universal living wage. If everybody gets paid the same thing, then bread in the same way becomes worthless. It has to go up more money. It has to be worth more. And yeah, dang it. Oh yeah, and in a universal living wage, people don't have enough money. I mean, because if rich people clearly aren't going to get their income that they usually get, and if they don't get their income that they usually get, then they can't do what rich people usually do, and that's be philanthropists. So there'll be no rich people paying into huge charities that are doing a lot of difference. And yeah, that's what I've got so far for my statement. I end it now.
Fantastic. Is it 4-minute rebuttal or 2-minute rebuttal?
2 minutes.
All right. Ollie, are you ready for your 2-minute rebuttal?
Yeah.
Begin.
Okay, so you tax richer people quite heavily. I think it would be one of the things as well. And money's not just being created out of thin air. Value isn't just being created out of thin air. It exists. So surely there must be a way to just redistribute it and redistribute its flow. In terms of like charities, you don't need people paying into big charities as much if people are getting a universal living wage. Not so required. Yeah. I think they were some of your main questions. Was there another question that you asked?
Just who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. So in terms of where it's going to come from, it's just being redistributed. It's not like it's not like you're making money, like literally synthesizing new money. Obviously, if everyone's got more money, that it's all going into the economy. It's all being fed around. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but it's not like it's not like it's coming out of thin air. Maybe raise the taxes. Just I guess if it's all proportional taxes, proportional wage, you just adjust it until you find something that works. That's a bit sustainable. I guess that's the end of my statement. My rebuttal.
You had 22 seconds remaining. Adam.
Ooh. Hello.
Are you ready?
Oh, I forgot I had to rebut. Right, let's do this.
Right, begin.
So, your main point was that a varied universal wage would be a good thing, and I do see the benefits of that. I do understand where you're coming from. I still don't feel like I said, if you taxed, they know for a fact that if they taxed everybody in America 100% of their income, they'd only be able to afford universal basic health care for 5 years. And that's everybody in America. America is the richest country on earth. And if they tax everybody, they couldn't even support the healthcare system for 5 years. So I just don't think it's sustainable. I just don't think that is sustainable. Another point would be, you said about how it goes into circulation. it is true that obviously if poor people have more money, the economy is better. And also you talked about how we've got to look after each other, but we were forgetting that poor people, one reason, and it's quite controversial, and this is not the only reason, it's absolutely not, but one reason why some poor people aren't very good with money is because, don't have a lot of money, is because they're not very good with money. And he said about how it'll be good to help the homeless. Well, one objection I would have to that would be there are some people in this world, sadly, homeless people, that choose to be homeless. Katia talks to, that's anecdotal, I'll drop that. But basically, there have been studies and there have been documentaries that have studied the lives of people who do choose to be homeless. And you need to remember that a lot of homeless people are veterans, and yet veterans are given, in America, veterans are given a, what's it called? They're given a pension, a veteran's pension, and especially if they're injured. And that covers the cost of living. So these people are choosing to be homeless for some sort of reason, for some crazy reason. So even with a universal basic income, people would choose to be homeless still. The only problem is there'd be no money to give to those homeless people now. I have my statement.
All right. We'll go into the question and answer section. Right.
Let's do it.
How long do I have for that again? Is it 4 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. My first question's for you, Ollie.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned like richer people having a lower state-appointed wage, and poorer people having a higher one.
Mm-hmm.
How does that relate to like homeless people, and does it get to a point where people just stop getting a state-appointed wage?
Well, I couldn't suggest that in my argument because there then wouldn't be a universal living wage with the argument I've been given. So I'd have to say it would be small. It would just become very small.
Hi, sorry about that. My dad just walked in.
You know, yeah, no, it would just end up being just like, you know, pocket change really for the richer people.
Right.
Okay.
So, Adam.
Yo.
Given that this is a global program, do you not think that we have a responsibility to implement something like this for the sake of those who are impoverished in places like Africa, for example?
Yeah, that is absolutely 100% correct. We do have a responsibility to help people in need in impoverished places, but the problem is who is going to pay for it? Because at the end of the day, in theory, we can help them, but in practicality, we can't. Like, I can't give more than I have to give, and in theory, it would be great to give them enough money that they could have a universal living wage, but in practicality, the money's got to come from somewhere.
And
that makes sense.
It would be impossible to fund something like this, even with all of the money that everyone gets.
Yeah,
even at the 100% tax rate, you said.
Even if they taxed everybody, even if you taxed just the 1%, even if you taxed everybody, it wouldn't be enough.
Right. I'll open it up for you guys to ask each other questions.
Got a question for me, Ollie, before I thoroughly wreck you?
No, I'm good.
I've got a question for you. How does it feel to know I'm going to wreck now? I was going to ask, how would you respond to what I said about how sometimes it's not good to give a universal living wage because some people would use theirs less wisely than other people, and then it would essentially be wasted?
What do you mean?
But let's say there's somebody
use it less wisely in what way?
Let's say they spend it on drugs. 100% of their universal living wage on drugs all the time. Wouldn't that be unfair to the person who's using theirs to support their family?
Right. I mean, if I was in charge of a program like this, what I would do is I would put a clause in place where if someone's found out as being on drugs, until they're off of drugs, I'd put their living wage to pay for them going to rehab, for example. They get a living wage. They don't necessarily, like in a situation like that, you know, you could revoke control over how it's spent, and you know, they have to go to rehab, and that's
30
how it's
seconds.
spent.
I've got a last question for you, so answer it as quickly as you possibly
Hmm.
can. So, the universal living wages in history have never worked. What makes you think it would work this time?
Because it'd be different. They've never been done right.
Isn't that an old Scotsman no true Scotsman fallacy?
Well, the no true Scotsman fallacy can, it's not always fallacious.
Time. I'll let you finish your sentence if you want to continue.
Yeah, just to explain, so just because something fits in the category of no true Scotsman, it doesn't mean it's fallacious. Because if you've got evidence to back it up, I mean, for example, for me to say that the IRA aren't true Christians, it's not a no true Scotsman fallacy because I've got the evidence of the scripture to back it up. Whereas obviously someone saying that ISIS aren't true Muslims, that's a no true Scotsman because even their scripture backs up what ISIS do. So,
All right.
Okay. Well, it was a good one. It was a good one.
We have our closing statements.
Oh, is there closing statements? Oh yeah, I forgot there's 20 seconds.
closing
isn't there?
stati montes, yeah.
No, he goes first.
Good thing I didn't give me verdict there.
Okay,
Alright.
we're human beings. We need to stick together. Again, we're not synthesizing money here. It exists. It's just in the hands of the greedy. And I think we need to liberate it from these people's cold hands and get it where it's going to be used, where there's going to be a free flow of money. It's going to be conducive. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Alright, Adam, go.
What my opponent has failed to realize is that he hasn't provided a way that this would be paid for, and that's what we need to think about here. Because we can say nice idea all we want, and it is a nice idea, and everything. I agree with everything Ollie's said. It would be great to have all of these things, but
Well,
who's
rest
going
my
to pay
case.
for it? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it?
Alright.
Just a tip, Adam, for debating. It's never good debating to say I agree with everything that guy just said.
No, I'm saying, you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I'm
I know what
saying-
you mean.
Yeah, right, that's a minus point for Adam on that one. I believe that my opponent in this debate is 100% correct.
I am going to live under a bridge now.
No, despite that, I think I am going to have to give it to Adam.
Fair one, mate.
I am a superior human being.
He did. You have the examples. He even busted out the fallacy at one point, despite a rebuttal towards it. Well done, Adam.
no problem. Would you guys like to have a debate? One last one.
Sure,
I'm debated out.
that's fair enough. I'm happy to not have one.
I don't mind.
Thank
I'll
you.
debate you, Jake. Oh, okay.
I was just God. I was gonna be so smooth.
I know, I'm sorry.
Alright. Thank you for listening to the alternative review. We'll be back same time next week. Probably not
No
actually.
problem, Jake.
Maybe not.
Sick. It's most likely going to be Sunday next week. Possibly not. We don't really.
Like it should be.
Yeah, it should be my fault this week. No,
It
this
is.
And
week.
last week.
This is the smoothest outro I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, right. Thanks for watching. Catch us in a bit.
Later.
Catch you later, friends.